Their last 10, but tonight they will try and turn things around. They take on Indiana, 7:30 Eastern on ESPN. Lakers have allowed over 100 points each of their last three, including a season-high 146 to the Bulls a few days ago. Booze and J. Will and Bobby. Quick takes here. Lakers have not looked just quite right since LeBron came back from the injury. J. Will, how concerned are we about the Lakers right this minute?
You know what? I know we live in this type of microwave society, Grinny. I am not concerned about the Lakers at all. I'm not going to allow short-term thinking to constantly mess me up on my long-term values of what this team. There was a 2-month stretch in which they were beating teams 500 or better, and their defensive rating was one of the best in the league. And this is a little bit of the issue when they're used to playing out in gaps. LeBron in the gap right there, and you're going to see Mattis knock down shots. The Bulls shot 58% from the field. And when they're not swarming around, and they're going to have some issues defensively in order to get back into those gaps, but it's only LeBron James' second game back. Right? We're going to see his third game back tonight. I'm not as concerned because I think they're going to find their rhythm defensively, especially with the way J.J. Redick plays off targeted shooters that shoot lower probabilities. That's how they play. They're going to find their rhythm. They're still going to be an issue.
Booze, if I told you the Lakers are going to be the last team standing with OKC in the West, would you take that bet?
If Luka plays some defense, I think teams are targeting Luka. They put him in help side situations. I think we can't avoid that. He's got to show up in the playoffs defensively.
I wouldn't take the bet just because what you have to go through in the first two rounds to get to a Western Conference Finals.
So who is it you would like? I mean, you talked about Houston earlier.
Yeah, they're
in the West.
scary. I mean, Houston's scary just because they're so young. And they just, besides Fred VanVleet and Dylan Brooks, they just haven't been there. So you could see them losing in the first round, but you could see them winning the first round and then basically gaining momentum there.
A lot of it's going to be based on where the matchups fall. It could go almost any direction. The only thing that's locked in the West is that OKC is going to be number one. Everything else is up for grabs. By the way, before you watch LeBron play tonight, you can listen to him talk on McAfee for over an hour today. He sat down LeBron James and Pat McAfee, an hour-long conversation. You will see it all on the Pat McAfee Show today, noon Eastern on ESPN. Coming up, back to the NFL. Giants country, let's ride. Will New York let Russ cook, or will they seek a new chef next month? That's Indiana State Sycamores and Magic Johnson's Michigan State Spartans was the most important basketball game ever played in the history of the sport. It remains to this day the most watched basketball game in the history of the sport, and it ushered in an entirely new era of basketball as we know it. As you can see, Magic's Spartans got the better of Bird on that day, winning the national championship. It was, of course, just the beginning of their rivalry that would define the NBA in the 80s and change absolutely everything. They would, of course, come together and win a gold medal on the Dream Team in 1992. But it got us to thinking, what were the 5 greatest individual rivalries that we've seen in basketball? That is the subject of today's Green List, and I really struggled with what to put at 5. And then I looked at some of the numbers, and I decided to put Shaq and Tim Duncan, because I ask you, they played against each other so many times. Who had the greater career? It is a really complicated question to answer. They met in the playoffs 5 times over a 6-season span. One of them won Finals MVP every year for 5 straight seasons from 99 to 2003. It is a rivalry that defined the era and maybe the last great big man rivalry. At number 4, Michael Jordan and Isaiah Thomas. If you know, you know. The history of it is overwhelming, and it carries to this day. Not just because of the legendary playoff meetings between Jordan's Bulls and the Bad Boy Pistons, not just because of all of the things that happened on the floor, but because of the freeze-out in the All-Star Game and then the freeze-out of the Dream Team. It is a rivalry that continues decades after their careers came to an end. At number 3, LeBron James and Steph Curry. Let's get the modern era into the conversation. These are the 2 faces of the sport and have been now for multiple decades. They met in 4 consecutive finals. Curry's Warriors snapped a 50-year championship drought in 2015. The following year, LeBron beat them when they won 73 games. They are the defining players of their generation. Number 2, I didn't want to go all Mad Dog Russo on you here, but you can't not include Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain. They met 143 times. In an 11-season span, Russell won 5 MVPs and Wilt won 4. They played each other in 8 playoff series in the 60s. Russell's Celtics won 7 of those 8. That's probably the reason I couldn't put them at number one. It was so one-sided. And of course, Magic and Larry completely changed the sport, in some ways changed sports in this country as we know them. One or the other of them appeared in every NBA Finals in the 1980s, including 3 times against each other. Except for Michael Jordan in 1988, either Bird or Magic won every MVP from 1984 through 1990. Their rivalry completely changed sports, and they have to be at number one on this list. So there they are as I bring in the squad, and I think Bartholomew Scott wants to jump in as well, representing Detroit. You got Shaq and Duncan at 5, you got Jordan and Isaiah at 4, Curry, LeBron at 3, Russell, Wilt at 2, and the silhouettes of Magic Johnson and Larry Bird at 1. You were dying to jump in on this thing. Are you satisfied with where I put Isaiah Thomas?
No, never. Isaiah Thomas should be number 1 because you talk about the other 2 rivalries on that list. You can add Isaiah to that list as well. His best friend, Magic Johnson, hit him with the flagrant foul in the finals. 25 points in the third quarter.
I understand.
You got to put Zeke up there more. And I got something to say to Gilbert Arenas because I usually don't do this, but he said something disrespectful about Isaiah not being, like that yesterday, talking about all that. Gilbert, man, you got 24 hours to apologize. We coming looking for you.
Isaiah, I've said it a million times.
Spoke with Zeke.
Listen.
Play that Agent Zero, you're going to have to holler at me.
Isaiah Thomas does not have a bigger fan than me. I always said of all of the small players, until Steph Curry recently, I would have taken Isaiah number 1. You have to put Steph number 1 now. I would put Isaiah number 2. I'll take Isaiah on my team ahead of any of those other guys, and my team will beat your team. Booze, the list, your reaction.
I love your list, honestly. I think at the time, Magic and Bird kind of saved the NBA, and they were dynamic and they were champions. I think MJ and the Pistons were terrific. I grew up watching Shaq and Timmy go at it, and I was there to see LeBron versus Steph Curry. So I think your list is money for me.
Talk to me, Jay Will.
I like the list, Granny. Number 5, though, can I just, and granted, they didn't meet in the NBA Finals, but this one felt more personal as a rivalry, though. How about Shaq and Kobe? Like from teammates to rivalries and how they felt. What do you think about that one?
I considered it. I did think of it. I told you I agonized over 5. The top 4 I thought were fairly easy. I just had to figure out the order. Those were going to be the top 4. I did consider Shaq and Kobe. But what I thought about was, and obviously the excruciatingly tragic way that we lost Kobe, the way that they came together later in their life. It was clear, and the way Shaq spoke of him, I just thought that it didn't feel right to me. I completely understand, Jay, the point that you're making. It just didn't feel right to me. Sometimes these lists exist. This will get posted later, right? And there won't be any context. It'll just show the names, and it'll just look off. But I certainly do understand the point you were making. It is an interesting question for those of us who are geeks about this kind of thing, and I very much am. Who had the greater career, Shaquille O'Neal or Tim Duncan? It is a fascinating and not easy to answer question. They were the 2 dominant bigs of their generation, and maybe the last time ever we see a classic rivalry like that of true bigs in the NBA.
Well, I mean, I think Shaq from a dominant standpoint. I mean,
right?
That stretch from 99 to like 2003 was as good as any big man, just because we faced them in New Jersey in the finals.
Yeah.
But I think for Tim Duncan, it's the length of his career and
right.
how dominant that Spurs team was during that. But just going back to the list, just because I don't want Bart mad at me, I'm going to put Isaiah at number 1. I heard his man before we went on. I heard him before we went even live, and that scared me right there.
Isaiah and Magic. Okay, so we'll leave that there for the moment. Anyway, that's the list. Have at it. That's what these things are meant for. But in the end of the day, I'm